it shows that the government has lost control of the economy. Many people looking at their mortgages, looking at their prices, now looking at their pensions are extremely worried. And so the government needs to recall Parliament. It needs to abandon this budget before any more damage is done.
A lot of people want reassurance right now. Isn't that the fundamental point? And as a responsible leader of the opposition, shouldn't you be helping restore some of that reassurance rather than saying the government's lost control? Aren't you contributing to the problem?
If the government recalls Parliament, which is what I think they should do, and if it reverses its budget, then we will support that in the public interest.
You talk about the government abandoning the budget, but you're actually sticking with a number of the measures that were in that, including tax cuts. A number of your policies are unfunded because of you sticking with those tax cuts, aren't they?
None of our policies are unfunded. Every single spending commitment we've made in the last 2 years has been funded. We've explained exactly where it's come from.
How much is Great British Energy going to cost the taxpayer?
Well, Great British Energy is going to be a publicly owned company that we will set up, future looking for investment, and so we will borrow to invest.
How much?
Well, up to, I mean, the Sovereign Wealth Fund that we've got, which will sit behind it, will have up to £8 billion. It'll unleash the private sector to invest as well. Where we put public money in, I want the rewards to come back to Britain, and that's why Great British Energy is going to be publicly funded.
Made great play at this conference about Labour back as a sort of party of defence, a party of pride in the United Kingdom. Will you match Liz Truss's promise to raise defence spending to 3% of GDP?
Well, let's actually see what Liz Truss puts on the table, because at the moment...
Well, that's what she says she wants to do.
Well, I know what she says she wants to do. She said last Friday what she was going to do in the budget, and you've seen the response already. We're at a position now where I don't think what Liz Truss says she's going to do in the future about defence is the key issue.
It sounds like you're not matching it.
The key issue... Well, look, I'll wait to see what she puts on the table.
Now, you were clear yesterday that you said you wouldn't have a deal with the SNP. Realistically, haven't you got to accept there's a very good chance you could be the biggest party at the next election but not have a majority? You can't start ruling out these sorts of things at this point, can you?
I have ruled it out in no uncertain terms.
And with the Liberal Democrats as well?
Not just because of the numbers, but because of a fundamental difference with the SNP. There's no basis of a deal, and therefore there will be no deal in any circumstances.
But what if that means you can't go into Downing Street because you can't command a majority?
Well, look, that is up to the SNP. If they want to bring down a progressive, forward-looking, confident Labour government and risk reinstalling a Tory government after 12 years of failure, then they need to go to Scotland and explain that to their voters.
And we saw you talking recently with Tony Blair at the accession of King Charles. Have you been talking to him? Have you been taking some advice from him, maybe?
I've talked to Tony, I've talked to Gordon. I'm very interested in talking to people who have won elections. We had 13 years of a Labour government, so talk to Tony, talk to many people, because I want to ensure that we have a Labour Party that has the very best campaign going into the next general election, so that we can join them as a team that won a general election and brought about huge change for millions of people.
Is your party now a Blairite party?
We are now a party facing the election confidently.
There's still a very long way to go. The next election may not be for 2 years, but they are leaving here with a smile on their face.
Andy, all smiles there. That is the end of the conference. But would you say it's been a success for Labour?
Yes, it has been a success for Labour. I think it's been a success for Keir Starmer. You hear very little dissent about the direction in which he is taking the party. I guess the real question is how much of this is down to the real problems that the government, the Conservatives, are facing, and how much is this about a kind of positive response to what Labour are actually doing?
And Andy, back to our top story. What have you been able to find out about why the Bank of England had to step in today?
Yeah, there was clearly a problem involving a number of pension funds. Basically, pension funds were seeking to sell government bonds. That's essentially government debt that has been parcelled up for sale. And there was not enough demand in the market for those pension funds to be able to sell all the bonds that they wanted to sell, which would have placed them in real financial difficulties. That is why, I'm told, the Bank of England, on what is described as a temporary basis, as a preemptive measure, intervened to buy up those bonds, which those pension funds could not sell otherwise. Now, what they are trying to say is that is the end of the crisis. One Treasury Minister has been out on the airwaves in the last hour or so. This is what he has had to say.
No, we both know that we're seeing the same impacts of Putin's war in Ukraine cascading through things like the cost of energy, some of the supply side implications of that, and that's impacting every major economy. And just the same, every major economy, you're seeing interest rates going up as well.
Now we're being told that the government policy announced in that mini-budget continues, that Kwasi Kwarteng continues as Chancellor, but it is the Conservative Party conference starting this weekend. Liz Truss will go there, having to convince not just the markets but her own party that the government really is on the right track.
Another huge development. Andy, thank you for that. Thanks.